certainly excited for your wonderful role in making our world better. Since we become Facebook friends, I've looked at some of the things you've done, and huge shout out. You are sharing such a powerful message from the heart that our world really, really, really needs. As I sit with this picture, you did a real nice job explaining my bio, but one thing that I like to tell people is one of the things that I learned decades ago: whenever there's a problem in an organ system or a tissue of the body, there are three distinct zones of cells. There's cells that are dead. Well, there's nothing we can do about those. There's cells that are fine. There's nothing we need to do about those. In between that are cells that are functional but not functioning. So this foot was given a death sentence. It was scheduled to be amputated 2 days from the day that picture was taken. But look at it 2 weeks later and ultimately 17 months later. And here's what I can tell you. The foot is a good example because you can see it, but we can do that with the brain. If you look at Dr. Dale Bredesen's book, The End of Alzheimer's, they have now thousands of documented cases of Alzheimer's being reversed. So even though the patient started out with very little memory, those were cells that were functional but not functioning. And as they got function back, well, they got function back. So we've done it with the heart, we've done it with the liver, we've done it with the lungs, we've done it with the brain, we've done it with the kidneys. In this case, we did it with the foot, and we do it with very thorough protocols. So, I really love that topic: guilt-free and turbocharged coffees and teas and shakes. And we're going to focus on heart health, probably for really good reason. Top killer in the world is cardiovascular. We're going to look at the brain. That's a top concern, and especially mental health. Then we'll look at autoimmunity and inflammatory process. So 1 in 3 deaths in the Western world are related to cardiovascular disease. Mark Houston is a world-renowned runner-up Rhodes Scholar, functional medicine cardiologist. And he's taught for the Institute of Functional Medicine. And here's one of the things he will tell you: even though there are over 1,000 biomarkers for cardiovascular risk, there are really only 3 causes: inflammation, oxidation, and autoimmune. So if we can deal with all of those, we can help cardiovascular. An oldie but a goodie cover story, the Time cover story called Inflammatory Process, the Secret Killer. It's only a secret if that inflammation is below the threshold of pain. I've done webinars on the chronic inflammatory process and chronic disease. By 2030, chronic disease is estimated to cost the globe $47 trillion a year. And the chronic inflammatory process is the link between poor lifestyle choices. I told people stress, toxins, malnutrition, physical inactivity, and ultimately chronic illness. So since we mentioned our guilt-free and turbocharged coffee, the PubMeds that I have called out here all show that Ganoderma is a very powerful immune modulator. And I let people know, if we want to, really control the inflammatory process, we can use a really powerful anti-inflammatory. We could maybe talk about dexamethasone, but understand we don't want to shut off the inflammatory process. We just want to tone it down, because inflammation precedes repair. And if we shut it off too much, there's negative effects and certainly a slowing healing process. When we look at Ganoderma as an antioxidant, 359 different PubMed studies call out the antioxidant capacity of Ganoderma lucidum, and it's considered one of the most powerful antioxidant plants by weight. And this was NIH.gov, but they basically said it's amazing that this has 10 times more antioxidants by weight than any other medicinal mushroom that they had looked at. And when we go with autoimmune, Ganoderma, this reference says, can be used to treat and or prevent autoimmune disease. And you might ask, well, what does autoimmune have to do with cardiovascular disease? When there's an injury to the vessel and plaque starts to form, there's actually foam cells that can form within the plaque. That's a macrophage, the immune cell that actually makes the plaque unstable. And Mark Houston called that an inflammatory process. A lot of us that are actually treating patients know that it's a clotting event that will often start the cardiovascular problem. That could be due to arrhythmia or some type of inflammatory process. And so medicine often uses drugs that prevent clotting, but they have the risk associated with them of abnormal bleeding. So what I tell people is the drugs prevent normal clotting and sadly promote abnormal bleeding, but the medical literature shows that Ganoderma prevents abnormal clotting without promoting abnormal bleeding. So powerful study. They did this with mice because they wouldn't do it to a human, but there's something called kynic acid, which was known to cause clots. And when they would give a certain dose of kynic acid, they could cause heart attack or stroke in 100% of the animals. And then they said, okay, if this is what causes the clot, how can we prevent it? And they figured out, okay, well, let's try aspirin. Well, they could do 10 to 20 milligrams per kilogram body weight. And if you know much about aspirin, that would certainly be along the range of a toxic dose of aspirin. But Ganoderma lucidum did it at 60 micrograms per kilogram body weight, which is a much lower dose. So I tell people, even if you had a 400-pound patient, if they had 2 cups of Ganoderma infused coffee, that would be enough to prevent the clot. Whereas I use my own body weight for this, I would need 9 baby aspirin with that same dose. And if you do that every day, it's just a short period of time before you have GI bleeding. And then some good summaries, different studies on Ganoderma and its anti-inflammatory process. It actually is known to balance the lipids where it decreases total cholesterol, decreases LDL, increases HDL, decreases triglycerides. Much of that is by improving insulin signaling. It's a natural blood pressure modulator. It's actually a natural angiotensin II enzyme inhibitor. It also promotes nitrate, which becomes nitric oxide, which can dilate the blood vessels, and the reference where it prevents abnormal clotting without causing abnormal bleeding. So very powerful. Just making a nice change in coffee can make a big difference for people's health. I like Daniel Amen. He's got a TED Talk entitled What I Learned After 83,000 Brain Scans. But his book, The End of Mental Illness, he says, what if mental health and brain health were one and the same? And his TED Talk, he talks about how psychiatrists were the only medical professionals up to a period of time that didn't actually evaluate the organ that they were treating. And so they started doing that with brain scans. And I tell people up until the age 55, cancer is the biggest fear out there. After the age of 55, people start fearing outliving their brain. And for good reason. There's lots of people that are giving into Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other neurologic challenges. So what did Dan Amen learn after 83,000 brain scans? And keep in mind, I think this was 7 years ago. So he's well into the 100,000s. And here's what he learned. You can change people's brains. You can create healthier thought processes, healthy emotions, healthier processing, all those things with the right programs. For years, and I taught a series with a neurologist from Cornell where I would tell people that the brain is the most nutrient dependent, energy dependent, stress vulnerable, and toxin vulnerable system in the body. And you go to PubMed and you can see nearly 26,000 studies on nutrition, nearly 39,000 on toxins, 27,000 on mitochondria, and over 116,000 on the brain. So let's go through those one by one. The Global Nutrition Report says literally that every country on planet Earth is affected by malnutrition. Sadly, we have some countries where people are starving. Fortunately, there's fewer and fewer starving beings, but there's an increasingly starved population. They call this overconsumption, undernutrition. We have depleted the soil. I tell people for over 100 years, farmers knew that they could grow a big plant with 3 elements, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But it takes 30 elements to grow healthy plants, animals, and humans. And so you don't have to be a math major to know that if you pull 30 out for every 3 you put back in, eventually you're going to have a problem. And so in the year 2000, when Barry Sears was promoting his book, The Zone, he's a pretty famous PhD researcher, he showed a copy of the USDA food pyramid. He said, if ever there was a terrorist-like plot designed to destroy the health of the world, this would be it. So I actually came up with my own pyramid. At the base, Nature's food. If God made it, it's okay. If man made it, stay away. Then we go to superfoods, Ganoderma, top superfood on the planet. Functional foods. These are things with a proven health benefit, often with a multi built within. I like the resolvin form of omega-3, Nobel Prize nominated research, probiotics, and a combination of D3, K2. And I recommend different ratios of these for literally everybody, whether we're talking about an elite athlete trying to win another world championship or someone fighting for their life. A couple different websites, superfoodevolution.com. This one's superfoodsforsuperhealth.com. Consensus top superfood, Ganoderma lucidum. And for good reason. More magnesium than broccoli, more vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than milk, more omega-3 than tuna, more protein than beans, more antioxidants than blueberry, more iron than spinach. It actually has all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water in doses that make a difference to human health, but also over 2,000 published medical studies. So here's one thing that I learned decades ago. That is when people are going to make a food choice or even a nutrition choice, supplement choice, their criteria fall directly in this order. Number one, it has to taste good. Number two, it has to be convenient. Number three, they have to be able to afford it. And then number four on their list is health. I've been wanting the world to move that up, but you know what? That's just where it is at this point in time. So I found out long ago, if we could give people shakes that were very nutrient dense, that tasted good, that would be awesome. And then functional coffee, functional teas infused with Ganoderma are amazing. Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, make 94.4% of human energy. This is how the brain is supplied with 94% of its energy. And guess what? Mitochondrial dysfunction is associated with neurodegeneration and mental challenges, and even neurodevelopmental challenges like autism. And so simple PubMed shows that Ganoderma improves, this study said, brain mitochondria, but also whole body mitochondria. It doesn't say, okay, just the brain, I'm going to make better. And the reason I show the golfer there is they did a study on golfers. They would actually put them on the green with EEGs on their head. And they found out when their brain was calm and their focus was better, their putting was better, to the point of about 3 putts for 18 rounds. So, if you look at how many people are really excited about their golf game, and by the way, I've taken collegiate players, not any golf pro yet. That's one market I haven't broken through, but collegiate players, give them a Ganoderma coffee before their tournament and at the back nine, and they play significantly better. When we go at stress, this was just before the pandemic. 3/4 of all medical visits were related to stress. Stress is not good for the brain. And when you get in fight or flight mode, you shut off all life critical function. Higher level thought process does not work well in fight or flight mode. I've got a YouTube video on the stress reset, but this is something that I think has been my most powerful clinical intervention over the last 15 years. We give melatonin every waking hour. The gut makes 400 times the melatonin as the brain, and melatonin binds to the adrenal cortex and buffers the pituitary drive on the adrenals. Theanine crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's a natural GABA facilitator, and it produces calmness without producing drowsiness. And then I like Ganoderma spores every waking hour. Spores are the most important or potent part of the plant, and it calms the body, the mind, and the spirit. You might say, you mean you have a PubMed that says it calms the spirit? And the answer is yeah. Literally, PubMed calls it the herb of spiritual potency. When we look at the toxins on the planet, talking again about the brain, certainly certain toxins are associated with autism. And I've done full day seminars on autism and even full hour seminars on how Ganoderma is safe for pregnant moms, is great for diabetes, obesity, PCOS, anti-infective and immune modulator, has all the nutrients and is even considered anti-aging. And it helps to clear some of these horrific toxins. Perfectly safe for pregnancy, although if you're going to get it through coffee, it's always best to check with your provider. And less than 2 cups a day tends to be good for about 98% of moms to be. Jeff Bland first introduced me to this case, and for a decade, 1995 to 2005, Jeff Bland and I did a tag team series. He's the founder of functional medicine. But he would talk about the case of the frozen addicts. So in the early 1980s, this group of drug abusers injected a synthetic heroin called MPTP, and they all woke up the next day with Parkinson's. Now, when they went to the hospital, the doctors looked at them and said, well, we want some of this. And these individuals said, what are you, nuts? Look what happened to us. Why would you want that? And they said, well, who knows? Maybe someday we could find a cure for Parkinson's. So by the way, this is the title of the PubMed. It took them until 2018 to look at it. Ganoderma lucidum extract makes better MPTP-induced Parkinson's, especially by enhancing mitochondria and autophagy, or basically the body recycling bad cells and killing off cells that are too far gone. And just like we had the heart summary for Ganoderma, here's a nice list of PubMeds where it shows it enhances serotonin for happiness, GABA for calm, acetylcholine for memory, and then dopamine, 3 different parts within the brain. It could be the focus in the frontal cortex, intense joy in the locus coeruleus, and then ultimately fine motor control in the substantia nigra. Powerful study here. Ganoderma dissolves brain plaque and improves circulation in the Alzheimer's patient. It's actually proven to be good for both neurofibrillary tangles and tau proteins. Another reference shows that it can prevent both Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And this was an animal study where they actually gave rats a controlled concussion. I like to say that, I'm not in favor of hurting any animal, but they give these rats a controlled concussion. One group got nothing, the other group got Ganoderma. Then the animals were sacrificed at 21 days, and that was the difference in amyloid plaque in the brain. Fun story, this is Donna May, and she's in a wheelchair because she's a diabetic and had one leg amputated. I was given a health talk where I shared the case of Maureen. And by the way, I have the video of that if people actually want to see her talking and see that she's a live person. But this woman said, my friend's mom is, in assisted living. She's already had one foot amputated. They're saying they may need to take the other. Do you think this could help? Well, I always answer that the same. I don't know if it'll help, but it sure won't hurt. Anyways, her wound on her foot that wasn't healing for months on end healed within a few weeks. Her blood sugar normalized. She no longer needed diabetic medication, and her memory was restored. Dementia resolved at 3 months. And she got 2 extra years with her family. Her daughter's name is Jolene. And when she went to go see her, she walked into Donna May's room, and Donna May looked at her and said, well, hi, Jolene, how are you? And you might think that that's, okay, a normal finding. No, she didn't know her daughter's name for over a year at that point in time. So absolutely fabulous story. Michael Morris, I have a nice video of that. If you look, both sides of his head, they took his skull apart because he had such a traumatic skull injury, brain injury. They life-flagged him. They called his kids into the ICU and said, say goodbye to your dad. He's not going to make it through the night. Well, I have a video on Michael, and the day that he was in my office, actually, so was Evan Holyfield getting ready for a fight. But Michael said he felt good enough to actually jog home from the hospital at 23 days. And by the way, he also got full cognition back. He won an award from his bank as a banker by the end of the year, number 3 banker in this large bank, even the same year that he had a traumatic brain injury. And finally, we're looking at stress, cortisol, and depression, 8,500 plus published studies. Universal agreement, 50 to 75% of all depression is stress-induced. This is for my biochemistry friends, but here we have tryptophan in the middle of this biochemical pathway. And if the body's inflamed or stressed, it actually drives tryptophan down to create something called quinolinic acid, which actually stimulates glutamate. But once it's given to this pathway, it becomes 5-hydroxytryptophan, which then is dedicated to serotonin and melatonin. And that's why we like to use the 5-HTP form. So now down to mood. This is something called the chronic social defeat stress depression model. And they put a rat very close to a rat that could bully it, and they would become horribly depressed. But when they gave them Ganoderma, that didn't happen. Human study, it improved happiness, satisfaction, and reduced quality of life. It's also really good for different toxins. And finally, anxiety. Many studies on Ganoderma and its GABA action, but this study showed that it had a calming effect comparable to Valium, but without the downside. Last comment there, microbiome, we have more brain chemistry in our gut than in our brain, and the bugs in our gut make a big difference in all of our health, including our mood and our body composition. So this study shows that Ganoderma reduces the obese microbiome. 40 different studies on Ganoderma and the microbiome, and it's really quite good for the whole brain, body, and mood. Last topic, autoimmunity. And what I tell people, and I just cut and pasted this from a mini course, people will come in and I'll ask them, how can I help you? And they say, well, I've got this autoimmune thyroid circumstance. And I'll ask them, well, how long has that been going on? They say, well, I was just diagnosed, so probably a year or so. And I'll say, well, what's the job of your immune system, or what's its function? And they say, well, I thought it was supposed to protect me, but they're telling me for some reason or other, it wants to kill my thyroid. Well, New England Journal of Medicine published these words: autoreactivity is physiologic and crucial to normal immune function. With our rate of cellular turnover, we have cells going bad, and we want the immune system to take out those bad cells. And this was a horribly tragic circumstance. This is Sasha McHale, the daughter of a Hall of Fame basketball player, Kevin McHale, who won championships with Larry Bird. But at age 23, she died not from lupus, but actually from immunosuppression from the drugs that she was taking. This is a TED Talk on autoimmunity. This says this is a normal beta cell, that's an abnormal beta cell, and the immune system then tries to kill that abnormal beta cell. Well, that's really what it should do. If you see a cell go bad, you should attempt to kill it. So when I teach autoimmunity, I tell people, if your cells don't recognize, your immune cells don't recognize your cells as your own, it'll kill it. So cell injury precedes autoimmune disease. That is directly out of the medical literature. And of course, there's a blend between genetic predisposition, some type of environmental disruption, and ultimately immune dysregulation. And there are universal immune balancing agents: vitamin D, DHEA, Ganoderma, peroxide, resolvins, and gut repair. And we have now 30 years of helping people through gut challenges. So that was what I had in terms of more or less like a CEU type talk, but some of the medical literature and what it says that Ganoderma can do for these top challenges. So we might see if anybody has any questions, comments about anything at all.
That was fantastic. Thank you. I know it was quick, but it's a nice way to get lots of information. And I think, really good information in terms of people, quickly understanding what some of the benefits of Ganoderma can be. I have two or three thoughts as I'm looking at who's on here with us. Can you comment just briefly on cancer benefits of Ganoderma? I know we didn't have a slide on that, but can you comment on that for us?
Yeah, of course. And by the way, I'll pull up a slide because, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but now that we've done brain scans, we know that a picture is worth millions of words. So it actually has direct proven benefit against at least 15 different types of cancer, which I'll pull up in a moment, but including breast cancer, inflammatory breast cancer, prostate cancer, melanoma, cervical cancer, colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, lung cancer. And I'm gonna share some slides and go back to the reference real quick, because people, if they want, they can screenshot this and look at this. But part of you being part of Sachin's group in Perfect Practice, after I gave a talk about Ganoderma and cancer, 2 different integrated oncologists said, my patients need to hear this. Would you do a Zoom with me? And I did. So Jen Simmons and Arana Rabeloff are the MDs that I did it for. But here we have the PubMeds for many of the different cancers that Ganoderma has proven with direct effectiveness. Glioblastoma, one of the more recent ones. And I'll tell you, I had a patient come to me a decade ago with glioblastoma, given a year to live. Well, we're now a decade later and she's alive and thriving. She saw Stanislaw Brzezinski in Houston, who has about a 1/3 cure rate with that. And she also saw me for the nutrition. Powerful study out of MIT. And notice what it says: stimulating both major branches of the immune system halts tumor growth more effectively. And Ganoderma is actually able to activate both the cellular and the humoral or antibody component of the immune system. And I particularly like this study because people are familiar with antibiotic resistance, but not enough people are familiar with chemo resistance. And they're by similar principles. If you don't give the right chemo or a long enough dose or an intense enough dose, the cancer learns to fight back against it. So notice this is the exact title of the article. It basically abolishes chemo resistance. And another study actually shows that it protects healthy tissue against cancer type radiation while enhancing the killing effects of the cancer. So, there are hundreds of studies on Ganoderma and cancer. And let's just say no known toxicity, no known drug interaction. It's a standard for every cancer patient that I create a protocol for.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you. And then one other topic I know of interest for one of the patients on here is the topic of just longevity. And I know you mentioned that in a conversation we had previously as well. So just a few comments on that, and then we'll open it up to questions. But I know people are going, okay, well, how do I get this stuff? So certainly if you can then share, what are we talking about with this coffee, and any other ways that we can get it into our bodies, this magic superfood.
And when we start talking about anti-aging and longevity, I think it's pretty clear that everybody wants to live a good, long, healthy, happy life. And the Nobel Prize, I think it was 2015, maybe it was 2016, was on this process called autophagy. And so I also, by the way, have different references here. So let me pull up some more slides, because this is going to play into this question very, very well. And by the way, they actually call Ganoderma the herb of immortality. And so its anti-aging benefits are very, very well documented. And so I guess you did say that this is a patient question. I do tend to get in teaching mode. And when I teach doctors all over the world, I tell them that my opinion accounts for a little, but the published medical literature counts for a lot. So there's our 2016 Nobel Prize winner. And he realized that we needed to recycle the proteins of our body. And this term autophagy, this literally means to eat oneself. And the body will recycle a number of dead and dying cells and actually make good use of the material it's going to recycle. So fasting, especially intermittent fasting, over 100,000 published medical studies. Exercise, not too much, but consistently. Amazingly enough, coffee is a powerful inducer of autophagy. A number of different antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, omega-3s are good for that as well. And then a diet which ideally regulates blood sugar is good. And then, by the way, what do you benefit from with autophagy? Healthy aging, meaning anti-aging, improved metabolism and body composition, brain health, cancer and heart risk reduction. And at the time that I opened up this study, 28 different studies calling out Ganoderma and its specific autophagy benefits. So, when you start looking at it, we have it in coffee, we have it in tea, we have it in shakes. The shakes are on back order because of global supply issues, but they'll be coming back in June. But we're seeing a lot of people changing their lives in a way where they enjoy the process. And then, so you ask the next question, well, how does somebody get it? Well, I fell in love with it, that I became an investor in the company. And so, as is Dr. Amy. And by the way, I don't know if you'd rather go by Dr. Amy or Dr. Duffy, but I've got to tell you, I love your powerful presence. You're making our world better so many different ways. And it's just an honor to share with you. But, we always tell people, and Dr. Amy said, I'm going to invest in it as well. So we tell people, look, you can be a retail customer. And since you're on her Zoom, she'll give you a link and she can sell it to you. For a small fee, you can be a wholesale buyer, or we're building a global team to share this all over the world. And one thing I have come to realize is one of my mentors calls this Saint Corona. And he says there's going to be an upside to it where so many people are going to say, you know what, I really should pay more attention to my health. I don't want to be at risk. And by the way, I want to take more control of my financial future. And both of these things are possible.
Great. That's fantastic. Again, information I agree with you 100%. When I talk about supplements or even hormones, I talk a lot about hormones and things like that. And I always say, I know that the studies are out there. I like to talk about the practical stuff, but knowing that there's studies out there really makes it comforting from our perspective in medicine. So it's great to have those studies out there. Just briefly, this is new, like I said, I really just started learning about this earlier this year. So just for people watching, what we're talking about is he keeps mentioning Ganoderma lucidum, which is the spores basically of this mushroom. And what they have done, this particular company has put these spores in coffee, in tea, in shakes. There is a pill form if you don't want to drink any of those things. But the idea is that, I can't remember what the statistic is, Dr. Bob, like some billions of people that drink coffee every day. So why not drink a cup of coffee that has this amazing Ganoderma in it that can give you some benefit while you're enjoying coffee or enjoying tea. They make it for kids. There's a hot chocolate. And there's, even though that has a little bit of sugar in it, the idea that the Ganoderma helps to balance the insulin response, you can use it safely. We have anecdotal studies of people wearing continuous glucose monitors and drinking these drinks and not seeing a significant change in blood sugar. Same thing, I think you've shared before, somebody having an EKG monitor on and not feeling or seeing an increased heart rate or palpitations with this particular coffee. So, I am carrying it in my practice now, and we have some samples for people to try, whether you want to try the coffee or some of the other flavored. We've got a mocha, hot chocolate, a latte, and then some teas, and also the spores available too. So again, what he was saying is that you can certainly just like, if you're one of our patients, you come in and buy some supplements or whatever, we've got it available in the office. And you can also set up, if you want, if you start drinking the coffee or tea on a regular basis and you want a little bit of a cost benefit to that, then you can set up your own, just like you do with like Whole Script. You set up your account, you can order it directly for yourself and even put it on auto ship. So I'm just super excited about it. It's fairly new, but I would say I've been drinking it for about a month now. I mean, pretty much when I heard you talking about it, I was like, I need to get some of that. And I didn't really have very many ailments to begin with, knock on wood. So, but it makes me happy. It makes me feel good about drinking my cup of coffee instead of sometimes guilty for drinking a cup of coffee. So I'm doing a metabolic reset now, so I'm drinking it black, and I've never touched black coffee in my entire life. And I can tell you that the last 2 days I've tried it, and it's actually pretty good. So it's got a good flavor to it. It's very rich and kind of creamy, even with just a black coffee. So any other topic, thoughts, questions? Anybody that's on want to ask a question while you guys are here, or anything else you have to share with us, Dr. Bob?
The delivery system is really important. So one of the things that you mentioned was hot chocolate. So this little boy had a brain injury. And 6 months before that picture was taken, his mother brought him in and said, look, he's taking Tegretol and Dilantin, his liver enzymes are elevating, and he's still having seizures. Can natural medicine do anything for him? And, we go back right to PubMed, anticonvulsant and neuroprotective effects, and we had it within a hot chocolate. So we gave him Ganoderma hot chocolate spores, which were easy to put on different types of food, and Ganoderma shakes, which he really enjoyed, a chewable multi, chewable omega-3s, improved his diet. Within 6 months, he was off of medication and seizure-free. And, another woman here as well, Michelle Harris, had a lifetime of seizures. Fire Captain Brian Figuera was actually on call when he rescued her from a seizure. And he told her, he said, look, this is not part of Toronto's fire department recommendations, but there might be something that could help you. And within 6 months of drinking Ganoderma coffee, she was able to get off of seizure meds and seizure free. So, the delivery system really counts. And our lattes and mochas are blood sugar friendly. We have our diabetics, if they want to drink them, we say, let's test your fasting sugar. Let's have you drink a mocha. Let's test it 45 minutes later and see. And you'd be amazed at how little blood sugar response it is. Ganoderma is that powerful for them. So that's why Sachin Patel came up with the title Guilt-Free and Turbocharged, because it's really all the above.
That's fantastic. And I'm drinking the red tea for your evening, kind of calm your body down, but it's really good flavor as well. So you get a cup of coffee in the morning and a tea in the afternoon or evening, and it just, you're going to be drinking coffee or tea or something anyway. So it's just one more benefit that you can get from some of those beverages. And like you said, there's all kinds, there's shakes and other things that we can use to get this into our system. So I appreciate your time so much, and it's been really fun to get to know you and sharing your journey with us and all of your amazing information and your brain. And again, open it up if anybody has any questions, happy to answer that. Otherwise, we will say goodnight for the evening. Anybody want to say anything? Who's ready to drink some coffee? I expect to see all of you in the office soon.
Looks like Ginger has a hand raised. So I don't know if she wants to type it in chat or unmute. Hello, Ginger.
Ginger, are you there?
Did she intend to put her hand up?
Let's see. Maybe she's just raising her hand, going to come get coffee.
Did I get unmuted now?
You're there. Hello,
oh,
Ginger.
good. I'm sorry. I was wondering about dosage. What's the quantity that you're putting in your coffee and in your drinks and so forth? And is that an effective dosage? Is it normal? You get it?
Yeah, and it is. And so, the company Organo has been around for 13 years, and they were the first. And then other companies like Four Sigmatic and Mudwater, and there's even one called Mushroom Coffee. And by the way, that's aptly named because it actually tastes like mushroom soup, not coffee. So there's a couple different patents that this company has, but since people have copied them, they now have the quantities proprietary. But I'm allowed to say that it's about 5% of any package. So the black has the least, followed by the king, which has more, followed by the latte, which has more, followed by the supreme, which has more, followed by the mocha, which has more, followed by the hot chocolate, which has the most. On my YouTube channel, I've got, a series on demolishing diabetes, type 1, type 2, and 3, and I show how Ganoderma was good for all that, and half a dozen mechanisms of blood sugar regulation. But you will get a therapeutic dose, and interestingly enough, mocha and hot chocolate have the highest amount of Ganoderma of any of the products.
Oh my, that's heartening.
So
thank you.
So just to clarify, if you drank just 1 cup of coffee a day, that's a dose that's good enough to get some of these benefits that you've been talking about.
Absolutely. Yep.
Then there's some protocols for if you're, acutely ill, sick, things going on where, like you said, a dose every hour on the hour when you're awake with the spores can be helpful for acute illness, things like that.
Yeah, in my patient base, and we may see a variety of different patients. Mine are very proactive. we did not even have a single patient in the last 2 years that required any level of hospitalization with the virus. And we don't even mention it because they don't like us to mention it, including couples, 2 different couples in their 80s. And, you know, we did the spores every hour. We did colostrum, we did zinc, we did vitamin C, we did vitamin D. And all those things are safe and effective. And, you know, it's amazing when you dot the I's and cross the T's for immunity in the body, bodies get better.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Anybody else? See, Ginger, I told you it was going to be fun. Good stuff. All right. Well, again, I appreciate you so much for joining us and taking your time out of your evening. And anybody has any questions or anything, and if I can't answer your questions, then I know the expert who can. So just find me and we'll go from there. And we will see everybody soon.
Good night, all.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Have a great night.
Good night, all.
Yeah.